Economic Forum is taking place right now at Davos, and Klaus Schwab and George Soros just pulled out of it.
They did.
What do you make of that?
They went to the bunker.
Yeah. They're digging some pretty big holes in Colorado, and there's a lot of bunkers in New Zealand, too, that are owned by billionaires. So.
There's big holes in Colorado?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's also the Cheyenne Mountain, and that's where all like the nuclear command is and stuff. And they've been... from sources unknown, I can also tell you that at some point I've eyeballed this like an RFP, request for proposal, for people to develop basically drone systems. You know that the movie Prometheus, where they threw the drones up in the internet channels? There was an RFP for people to develop tech like that because the government was interesting. The premise was that they wanted to be able to fight in underground cities.
Fight?
Yeah, like as in for the military. We want to be able to map terrain and have these drones that can navigate in underground space without GPS and map the environment, because it's the combat situation was fighting in underground cities.
Because there's going to be a small population of marauding people, and there's very little resources, and a small number of humans left alive, and civilization will be thrown into chaos.
Right.
Fun.
Yeah,
fun.
a lot of a good time.
So much fun. But let's argue about what gender you should use the restroom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure there's people that are exploring that premise, man. They have to be, I think.
Smart people, top men, as they call it. They must be looking into it. And so, like I brought up on the first time I was on with you, and then Graham Hancock had a whole episode on it, the Cappadocia, underground cities. There's many of them, and a lot of them can support tens of thousands of people. That almost, to me, looks like a doomsday bunker, like an ark of some kind. Like they could house farm animals. They connect to underground rivers that are 15 stories down. This was sophisticated, and I'm like,
there's underground rivers that are 15 stories down?
Yeah, they dug right to them. And here's something else. They say that there's zero evidence of any type of cave-ins. So whoever carved this out of the limestone in there, this was sophisticated. Like, they did so in a way that it didn't collapse in on itself, and they also must have known that it reached a freshwater source of water down below.
So as long as it doesn't get hit directly,
right,
which you could never predict.
Yeah, you'd be screwed.
Yeah,
which is where I'd want to be if it happens.
This is wild.
Have it land on me.
Yeah. Look at there's pictures that show images of it like underground.
Yeah, we've seen those before when Graham and Randall were on last. We talked about these, and that they'd probably use these for short periods of time, right post impact, before they came back to the surface again. So they weathered the storm and then came back above, and that they had gotten accustomed to this, which is just really wild, man. So this is in Colorado. They're all over the place.
Jamie, you should Google the Cheyenne bunker system.
Do you want to live, though? If everything goes sideways, completely back to caveman life, do you really want to make it through that?
Yes, I've seen enough television shows and movies to know that it's a lot of fun. I'm a prepper. I have my things in place to be safe, and I would, if shit really hit the fan, I'd want to look after those who are still around. Like, I don't know, maybe it'd be miserable and I'd be eaten alive by cannibals.
How many bullets do you have saved up?
I won't answer that. Ask me after the program. Plenty.
Okay.
Plenty. I was a soldier. All right, so you need thousands. Because
you need a lot.
You need a lot.
Thousands. Because people don't realize, they hear like, 1,000 rounds, that's scary. Like, if you're just doing target practicing, you can go through 100 rounds in minutes. So you would need a bunch, and you'd want a variety of calibers, and you'd want a bunch of each one of those calibers, because if you get to a point where you run low, you want to be able to go scavenging, and you would want a variety of weapons that can house different calibers. You'd want a shotgun, you'd want the 5.56, you'd want probably a 9mm because it's the most abundant, and Ruger 1022 long rifle, you'd want it all.
Yeah.
The people coming at you, though, too, that's the thing. Like, I've got a few acres, and you run through the scenarios and stuff like that. The people that are going to come at you from the cities and from those desolate areas, like, they're the winners of that competition. They're going to be the most savage, crazy MFers that have been eating everybody else and taking all their shit.
Fun.
So you just got to be...
And then how long before we start figuring out phones again after that? How many thousands of years before? That's what's really crazy to think of. If things get knocked into the Stone Age, like if you go back to the sophistication of ancient Egypt and you think about what the civilization could have been like. I mean, you're just speculating. You're just trying to just imagine how they could have moved these 500-ton stone blocks 500 miles. You're putting all these things into your mind. And then say, how long does it take to get from that if you knock back into barbarians, how long does it take to get from that to where we are now?
Well, evidence would suggest something like 6,000 years.
Which is wild.
It is.
You think about but if you think about how absolutely fucking ruthless people were 2,000 years ago, doesn't it kind of make sense that those are the ones that made it through, and then it took a long time before they calmed the fuck down?
Right.
So if you go back to, whatever it was, the sophistication level that people were at when they built ancient Egypt, let's just speculate that it was 20,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And you think about how much they had to endure to get to that point, and how much they had to. I mean, there's real evidence, and if you especially pay attention to the work of people like Steven Pinker, that over time there's been less violence, less crime, less everything. Like civilization has gotten better. We are calming down from now versus the way we were 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago. Things are moving in the correct direction. But how long does it take before you have this level of sophistication that allows you to get to the pyramids? And then we're nowhere near that now. So even on the most conservative speculation that the Great Pyramid is only 4,500 years ago, we're not even anywhere near that now. We're nowhere near the level of sophistication that it took them to build. And we're just guessing as to what kind of technology they had available to them. And as you pointed out, with these vases and with just the alignment to the constellations, the sophistication that's involved in the construction to get stones that are tons of stone that you can't even get a razor blade in between. Like, what the fuck was going on?